So I've been working on cars for a little while now. I think I've gotten a little bit better because when I look back, there are definitely some mistakes that I've made. So here are 5 mods that I wish I'd never done. The first one I regret, and kind of the first one I did, is shift knobs and shifters. When I first wanted to make my FRS my own, I wanted to do all these little color accents and stuff. I ended up with this super cheap shift knob. I realized I didn't like that. Then I started to change over to weighted shift knobs, which felt better, but they were super hot whenever I got into the car in summer. I went through 3 or 4 shift knobs in the FRS before I settled on the TRD one, which I probably would have saved a lot of time and money if I had just gotten that in the first place. The Yaris is a completely different story. I went through shift knobs, I went through short shift kits. Admittedly, the Yaris is not a super supported platform, but none of them really made much of a difference. In fact, when I was driving the other Yaris at Buttonwillow in 2022 for the Lemons race, I felt like that shifter was less sloppy than my short shifter, and that was an OEM shifter. The only thing that got the Yaris really shifting well was when I finally spent the big bucks on a shifter and got this from WK Motorsport. This is one of my favorite pieces in the whole car, and I've driven 2 other Yarises that have this shifter. Honestly, to call it a night and day difference is an insult to how bright night actually is. This, I think, might be my favorite piece in the car. It's super sloppy right now because there's no transmission connected to it. On to the next one. So, you know, I've got a short throw shifter sitting around for the Yaris and an OEM one, if anybody's interested. I know I just did a great job selling them. Okay, turn off camera. Next one. Next up is the throttle body swap. I did this on my Yaris a little while back. In fact, I did a video on exactly how to do it, and I regret doing it. Here's the 1NZ throttle body, and here is the 2AZ, also pretty similar to the 1ZZ, which went into the car. Very different sizes in throttle body. And I regret it because when I did it, I understood it as a plug and play swap. It's not exactly a plug and play swap. I had just done my transmission swap. I had just installed an oil cooler for the first time. I was really feeling like I understood cars and I could just easily pull things out and put things in and it would work. And it kind of did, and that's sort of what was the problem. The thing is, if you do the 1ZZ throttle body swap, you have to adjust the idle, and I didn't end up doing that, which is why the car idles weird slightly sometimes, but as a race car, I didn't see that as much of an issue. Also, even if you do adjust the idle, it still gives problems at partial throttle, because that's when the amount of air that the ECU is expecting and the amount of air that the throttle body is giving are most different. This is why I thought I was having fuel cut at Chuckwalla a couple years ago, because I was on partial throttle through those sweepers. Turns out I was just leaning out the engine and the ECU was just cutting fuel to save me from having a big problem. This is why I regret the swap, because it kind of works, and in a lot of situations it can feel like it is really doing something positive, and it totally works. However, it has the potential to put you in bad situations that you don't know about, and it can become a real headache. If you're tuning your ECU, it might be worth doing, but if you're off the shelf or on an OEM tune, I really don't recommend it for this or almost any car. That being said, I have an aftermarket throttle body in my FRS from Graham's, and it's been doing absolutely fine.
Speaking of my FRS, I've been unmodifying it recently and trying to get it back to a more neutral driving experience. One of the things that I'm definitely changing on it are the sway bars.
I am on my 3rd set of sway bars with this vehicle, and it's not because there's any problem with them or anything like that. They didn't go bad. The FRS really doesn't need sway bars, at least not until you're much deeper into changing other suspension things. Sway bars is like the last piece you need. It's the garnish. I actually won an online giveaway and got given some free sway bars that were super stiff. Even at their softest setting, I could 3-wheel this car with no problem. So I recently switched back to the TRD sway bars because this car has now just become about collecting TRD logos. And by the way, this is not a video about you should never do any of these mods. This is a video about the mods that I have had to do 2 or 3 times. And with the knowledge I have now, I would have only had to do them once. A lot of mods, when you do them the first time, you're going to either not do it enough or overcorrect or something like that. And that is part of the learning process. So for me, this is kind of just a look back to prove that I've actually learned something in this time. Sway bars are an easy install. They change your vehicle up a whole lot, and they're cheaper than getting coilovers. So I did it on all of my vehicles. I did it on the Yaris as well, and added a rear sway bar, a white line sway bar, and eventually softened that down to a Cusco sway bar. Even though my Yaris is pretty intense, that white line sway bar is just too much for the way I've got it set up. The next one is a stiffer clutch. I've done this in both my FRS and my Yaris, and I've honestly had poor experiences both times. This is the Yaris clutch. It's from ACT, and since the car was an automatic, I needed a clutch when I was building out the kit. And an ACT clutch was about the same price as an OEM clutch, but this was fancier, it's yellow. After driving other manual Yarises though, I know that the way this bites is way different. It's really high up on the pedal, even though I've adjusted it a bunch. It's definitely heavier, and the engine is not producing enough power for this to really matter. In the FRS, I bought it used and it needed a clutch pretty early on, so I went with an ACT clutch and immediately regretted it. Day one, I almost couldn't drive it out of the parking lot. It mellowed out eventually, but I ended up later having throwout bearing issues, and I switched back to an OEM clutch eventually, and I haven't had a single problem since. My first assumption was that I was just really that bad at driving manual, but then once I had been back to OEM for over 40,000 miles, I realized that it must have been the stiffer clutch. That all being said, that ACT clutch is the one that I have to go on this 2ZR engine, and it does fit. So now maybe its ability to hold more power will actually become worth it, but honestly, we're not bumping the power all that much. If I was gonna do this all again, I would rather go with a lightweight flywheel, especially for the track car, because that thing can use as much weight taken out of it as possible. Lightweight flywheels and heavier clutches are definitely harder to drive for a street car. It's just not fun in traffic. And if you ever take your car to a valet, it is painful to watch. The last one is Lexan windows, and I know what you're thinking, who in their right mind would do Lexan windows? Well, I did. One of the very first mods I did on this Yaris when we were trying to kind of learn how to do shit with cars. One of the windows was broken, only slightly my fault. I knew that race cars had Lexan windows, and I knew you could get Lexan at Home Depot. So we went and tried to make Lexan windows, and they were terrible. They didn't fit right, they were flat, not curved, you couldn't roll them up and down, they rattled like crazy. I had track day organizers get mad at me for them.
Both windows need to be all the way down.
I'm gonna have to pull that one out then.
Oh, it's fixed?
So right now, this car has no windows because there's no point in putting windows back in, and the Lexan ones were absolute garbage. I'm sure with other platforms where they make pre-made Lexan windows, it might be a lot easier, but if you're not a dedicated track car, it is really, really, really not worth it. A lot of mods definitely pop up in different shops and they look easy and simple and sometimes very cheap, but the reason they are made is usually something so specific that you don't need. There are plenty of things on my FRS that I absolutely do not need, and they were bought just because there was cash burning a hole in my pocket and I wanted to tinker on cars. Did I learn some things? Absolutely, but I also learned what I wouldn't do again, which is kind of what this video is for. Oh, I can do this. And if you got this far into the video, you probably want to know how the Yaris engine swap is going. And if you can't tell, it's not going well. I haven't actually touched this car in nearly a year. I'd like to say it's because I bit off more than I can chew, but annoyingly the answer is a lot simpler and more mundane than that. Life. When I was working on this car, I was working an office job that was both emotionally draining and not creatively fulfilling. So even though I didn't have much energy left, I needed that creative outlet, and working on the Yaris was absolutely that. For the last year and a half, I've been at a different job, which has been taking up more of my time, but has been leaving me more creatively fulfilled, so that when I'm done, I don't feel that need to work on something as much as I want to just unfortunately sit around and watch TV and enjoy time with my wife. On top of that, I'm traveling to more races this year, and I got a directing job on something that is completely different, not car related at all, but if you guys are into vampires, I'll send you the link. Bottom line is the passion projects are your passion, and sometimes that passion ebbs and flows. I'll admit that I lost motivation on this swap, and I lost motivation at probably the hardest time as far as actual mechanical skill. Whoop. Now, I'm not saying I won't finish this car. I'm absolutely gonna finish this car. I just might call in a few buddies to help me make it happen, do some other things in between, and maybe do a few things at a shop rather than doing it all in my garage. This car has been with me since we bought it new off the lot in late 2006. I am not giving up on it now. I learned a lot over that time, and I have plenty of regrets, but this is not one of them. Behind that camera is an engine on a stand, a whole bunch of aftermarket parts for it and for the car itself, and everything that I need to get this thing put back together. I just need this, and this to all align to make it happen. But it's gonna happen, I promise you. Before Chris Fix gets his Turbo Del Sol running, before Nolan finishes his Chrysler Imperial, before the big time boys do anything with that side-by-side they bought, I will get this car put back together, probably. How the f do I get out of here now? I'm gonna break the core support. Okay, that's about it.